Hi, welcome back. My name's Alex. I'm here to provide some motivation for getting things done around your house or just watching a speed cleaning. As I promised last time, I wanted to get into something I was curious about, which is why there is a midwinter break during the winter, which comes after the regular like Christmas, New Year's week off, like 12 days usually, that schools are not in session. As far as I remember, I went to school in Maryland when I was growing up, which was after I moved from the USSR, the former USSR, and I think I ended up in the middle of fourth grade in Baltimore County, Maryland. So, as far as I remember, there was not a midwinter break there, it was just the regular break. And now my kids have had this midwinter break. So, I was just curious what the deal was with that. And I went down a long rabbit hole. Basically, when I initially looked this up, it said that there was a 1973 oil crisis which was responsible for school closing. So I started researching the background of that. It was a lot of information that I encountered, which basically stemmed from an embargo on oil. The OPEC oil embargo mainly targeted the United States and the Netherlands for their support of the Yom Kippur War, for their support of Israel during the Yom Kippur War, which was when Arabs launched a surprise attack on Israel in 1973. Well, obviously, that attack was not produced in a vacuum. That was a string of back and forth aggressions between Israel and Egypt. The background of this conflict basically goes back to the creation of the state of Israel and the dispute over the legitimacy of that state. And so there was also a lot of fighting and takeover. I believe that first Israel took over the Suez Canal, and that caused a backlash, which was the Yom Kippur War. So I cannot speak on the details because I have watched many videos and it's still unclear to me exactly what were the motivations, besides the fact that there was a lot of back and forth aggression. Some of the countries involved in OPEC believed more or less in using oil to control policy, and the embargo on the countries which assisted Israel was part of this oil crisis. And even though OPEC did not include Egypt, Egypt did form an alliance with the Saudis, I think mostly to leverage political influence through the use of oil. Throughout the 60s, the United States has been more and more relying on Saudi oil and purchasing it where it was much cheaper than refining their own. The embargo caused massive shortages. I think the embargo made oil be like 300% of the price that it was. And even though it didn't last very long, the embargo itself, it created these ripple effects. Also, because of other factors separating the dollar from the gold standard, that caused a lot of shocks in the market. And basically, like after receiving such cheap prices for the oil, partially combined with the embargo and partially combined with the leveling of the price, because of that, dollar gold decoupling, there was like a huge jump in oil prices basically and a shortage, which led to a lot of gas stations being out or like not selling gas on weekends or other measures like the government asking people to conserve in various ways. And so initially I was like, okay, so the reason why my kids were off school for a week in 2026 is because of a Middle East conflict that happened in the 1970s. I know that this is okay for me because I'm around if they're sick, if there's a holiday, they stay home. It's not a big deal. But I know that for a lot of families, having these breaks throughout the year, having random holidays, clerical days, like conference half days or full days off, it's really hard for somebody with a 9 to 5. And I've seen that a lot. A lot of people don't have somebody that who can watch their kids. In the school system, the Christian holidays are observed, the Jewish holidays, and some Muslim holidays are observed. So there tend to be a lot of days off. So this is why I was started digging around in this about this break. But I also understand that the teachers and school administrative admins have to negotiate, and I suppose that it is in their favor to have more breaks and days off, even though in the end, I think the school year has to be a certain amount of days so that, it's standardized across the country or the state. So even though there's breaks, obviously they are going to be extended into the summer, but for whatever reason, this second winter break has been beneficial enough that it got codified, becoming permanent in 1991. I didn't find a clear, like, concrete answer. I mean, yes, the oil crisis, which actually, after doing all of this research on the Middle East conflict, I looked it up like with using a different search or something, and then it said that yes, it's connected to the oil crisis of 1973, but the actual midwinter break did not start until 1977/78. So maybe like some schools started it in 77, or maybe it was like that winter between the 2 years. So that was actually because of a natural gas shortage. And the reason for that seemed a little more organic. The price of natural gas was so cheap that it almost wasn't worth producing it. And there was also like companies were supplying to local supplying it locally versus making it widely available. I don't know what that means. I wasn't willing to go down yet another huge research. I wasn't willing to do another research project on natural gas. And from what I heard, it's also coupled with an unusually cold winter, coming on top of already a pretty bad oil shortage. So everybody decided to close the schools for a week to save on energy. I guess to save on transportation for buses as part of other measures that were being taken to like nationally reduce the amount of oil and gas that was used. So it seems to me that the reasons why we kept this break, especially there's only a handful of states that have it, like they're all in the Northeast. And the reasons I found were like it's a good time for a break in the drag of the long winter, unpleasant long winter. The cold and flu season was mentioned as a reason, as in this is the time for a lot of people get sick. So having this break kind of breaks up the chain of everybody just constantly being sick. Like if there's a couple of people sick, they get the class sick, and then the person who recovers gets sick again. And so that was mentioned as one of the reasons that giving this break gives people like a time to stay away from each other, which doesn't make any sense to me because if they are not at school, like I'm sure they're at camps, they're with babysitters, they're seeing, traveling, seeing family, which I don't really understand, like who with a normal working schedule would be able to go travel. That was another reason listed, like, oh, it's to allow families to travel, but we already had a whole 12 days to travel, which is where most people go see family. Another reason was burnout so that kids can get a rest, teachers can get a rest. I don't mind at all. I really don't. I just understand how difficult it is for a family with two working parents without support from relatives to be taking these breaks because then of course there's a month and a half later there's another the spring break, which is obviously the common break that every school has across the board. So this is why I went down this whole research about why it has stayed around. I think the initial reason makes sense, but it still doesn't really make sense to me why we thought this was beneficial as as a school district or as a state. I suppose I got my answers. I just don't really get it. Like like daylight savings, I don't understand why that's still happening. Like why we as like smart individuals don't just say enough and stop like messing with our brain twice a year. And that one also, I did some research on the daylight savings. It didn't seem to really originate from, I mean, yes, initially it started as um, a wartime effort to save on energy, to have more daylight. There's also a commerce component to it that people were more likely to shop um, in the evenings, or I don't even remember what it is exactly, but when you kind of look at the research, it seems to strongly suggest that there's a lot more negative impact on having this switch twice a year, like accidents and that it doesn't actually save any electricity, that it might even use more, like once we started having air conditioning everywhere like that, having us like stay up later or whichever one it is, I don't even know. That like having longer evenings is not good enough to make people go out and shop, but is in fact like making people stay home and use more AC or whatever it is. I don't know. The I just don't understand like why we have to be subjected to this. And I was talking to my kids about it. I said like, "Oh, in a couple of weeks we're going to have the end of daylight savings or the other way. I never know. But it's the one where you wake up earlier. And we were already, like from the winter break, we were already so off our schedule by like an hour and a half at least after trying to get back on the routine. To get everybody up at like before 7 a.m., to get everyone to bed before or around 9. And I was like, by the way, you guys, this might seem hard now, but in a couple of weeks, we're going to have to do another adjustment. And they said, well, we're just not going to do it. We're not going to do daylight savings this year. And I was like, okay. If everybody decided not to do it, then we wouldn't do it. Now, I know some people say, like, well, there are children who walk to school and it's dark out, and that's really dangerous, and I agree with that. Um, sure, there are reasons for it and against it. I personally find a lot more reasons against disruptions in general because life can be challenging just as it is without. And that's the thing about myself, like I need a reason. This is why I was looking up this why this midwinter break. I enjoy reasons for things and logic behind them, and I didn't see a clear one in the daylight savings. I know what the reasons are. I just don't think that they're compelling enough to keep having it. It's almost like one of those things that everyone just does without question, and that changing it, um, I think a couple of states don't have it. Like, I don't know which ones, like Hawaii and somewhere else, they just don't have it anymore. But I feel like at this point, most people would recognize that it's completely unnecessary, but the legislation it would take to make it go away is almost like not worth it for people. Or if somebody becomes, I don't know, a politician or in Congress, or I don't even know who's responsible for this. Um, I have heard like once every couple of years, like Congressman so and so wants to repel the daylight savings thing, or but it doesn't go anywhere because I think it's just like more annoying to change things than it is to keep having something that doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I hope you guys are having a good winter or a good summer if you're on the other side of the world. And you could probably tell I'm a little bit sick right now. Surprisingly, overall, we've had a very healthy school year. I know last year I received letters from the school saying that my kids were like irrevocably and catastrophically late, not late, absent. And they used this language to kind of scare you into making sure attendance is up. And that might be more important for like school stats than anything else because they really push. They give awards for attendance if you've attended the entire month, or like the kid themselves gets a certificate for attendance for the entire months, and the class gets a certificate for being like the best class at attendance. And I've never really understood that because especially in elementary school, it's all about the parents. Like the parents make the call. It's doubtful that the elementary school kid is gonna be like skipping school. So obviously, if the parents make the call to keep them home, it's because of illness or travel, which obviously is highly discouraged. But all this to say that I have been blown away by how well our attendance has been this year. Like the kids are, they're like, why aren't we sick? We want, we want to stay home. And Yeah, there was a couple of days. Or like if one of them is sick and the other one isn't, and they're like, but I want to be sick too. I don't want to go to school. And that's its own challenge, obviously. Um, being healthy is not something that they want. And I've even had, I've heard a friend of mine from the same school with a kid in the same school. She was like, they they keep telling me, they keep sending me these letters like, oh, you've missed so many days. So she called the school and she said, oh, well, like my kid has been sick for 12 days straight, and then now they have whatever, something else. And she said, like, are you saying that I should send them to school? And the school's like, oh, of course not. We just have to stay on top of our attendance. So I know that like I'm on a lot of school forums or whatever groups, and people a lot of times they're like freaking out about attendance, and like my kids are in fourth and first grade, and this has been the first year where they've actually been going regularly, and nobody's had like an entire week off, which was the case like maybe even more than a week off, um, after like they were able to go to school like actual full time in 2022, like between 2022 and now. This is the first year where they're not constantly getting completely knocked out with illnesses. And so yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. I hope you are having a healthy season, whatever that is for you right now. It looks like, at least over here, there's a break in the weather. It looks like it's actually going to be getting to this up into the 60s next week, which in Celsius could be almost up to 20 degrees. That's going to be interesting after a record cold of a record length here in New York. Maybe I can even take the plastic down that I've used to fortify the windows. All right, well, thank you for watching. Hoping the next one will be coming out soon as I try to build some momentum in creating content. Oh, and I wanted to extend a big congratulations to Remi Clog, who's another mom YouTuber who cleans her house, and she just had a beautiful baby girl. I don't think I would have created this channel if I didn't see other moms being positive and uplifting on the internet.